A few days ago, ESPN analyst Field Yates dropped a 2-round NFL mock draft that very conveniently had 24 skill players drafted through those 2 rounds. So I wanted to break down a superflex rookie mock draft based on the landing spots from Fields' NFL mock and how I think ADP would look post-draft. And trust me, this was not easy. This mock is filled with ideal landing spots for a ton of rookies. So let's get into it. With the 1.01, this should be no surprise. It is Caleb Williams landing first overall to the Chicago Bears, a pick that was basically solidified since Justin Fields was traded to Pittsburgh a couple of weeks ago. In my opinion, Williams should be the 1.01 in 95% of Superflex leagues because he's coming into the league as a Dynasty QB1 and a potential redraft QB1 given the weapons that he has around him. The only teams that I would be okay not drafting Caleb Williams 101 are the ones who have 2 top 10 guys already. Otherwise, you are drafting Caleb Williams or you're trading back. So then with the 1.02, it is obviously Marvin Harrison Jr., who does land with the Arizona Cardinals at 4th overall. Just a perfect match on both sides. A team with a stud quarterback in a massive hole at the receiver position drafts the best wide receiver prospect we have seen in probably over a decade. This is Jamar Chase to the Bengals, Justin Jefferson on the Vikings, CeeDee Lamb on the Cowboys. This landing spot for Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to vault him well into the top 5 dynasty receivers, if not even top 3 for some people, and he is well worth the pick here at 1.02 in Superflex. Let's keep the train rolling with our 1.03. Jayden Daniels is drafted 2nd overall to the Washington Commanders, which is a great landing spot for Daniels because he will have weapons to work with in Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, a very solid run game with Brian Robinson, and a new offensive system with Cliff Kingsbury that, maybe didn't translate super well to the NFL in Arizona, but Kingsbury knows what to do with a mobile rookie quarterback, as Kyler Murray finished as a top 10 fantasy quarterback as a rookie, and then the QB2 overall in his 2nd season in the Kingsbury offense. So if Daniels has that range of outcomes out the gate, his upside is tremendous, and he has to be the rookie QB2 in the class in the 1.03 in the Superflex rookie mock. Now, 1.04 is where things start to get a little bit interesting, and based on Field Yates' mock, I am putting J.J. McCarthy here at 1.04 as the rookie quarterback 3 in the class because he lands 5th overall with the Minnesota Vikings. The Chargers trade out of their pick to stock up on more draft picks, and the Vikings get their potential franchise quarterback. And look, I'll be honest, I am not a massive J.J. McCarthy fan, but even I can't deny that he would have every opportunity to succeed in the NFL on the Minnesota Vikings. With that receiving core of Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones now out of the backfield, he wouldn't even have to try all that hard, and he could be at 4,000 passing yards and 25 or more touchdowns, which is a borderline QB1 in fantasy. That is the range that Baker Mayfield and CJ Stroud were in last year statistically. And then maybe as he develops and gets a little bit more efficiency, he could be Tua or Brock Purdy, throw for 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns in a season and be a borderline top 5 guy any given year. The landing spot is just so good here for any quarterback to Minnesota. It just so happens to be J.J. McCarthy here, and that vaults him up to the 1.04. At 1.05 now, we do get our wide receiver 2 in the class, Malik Nabers, who quote-unquote fell to 6th overall to the New York Giants because I think the Chargers traded out. And while I don't mind the landing spot because we know that Nabers will be the for sure wide receiver 1 in that offense with a bunch of targets and a creative offensive system to get him the ball as much as possible, I don't know if the overall community is going to view it that way or view it in that positive of a light, especially with J.J. McCarthy getting a pristine landing spot in a Superflex league. I have seen a lot of people get excited about taking Nabers potentially as high as 102 or 103 in Superflex under the assumption that he is heading to LA to be with Justin Herbert. So I think him going to New York would deflate a lot of that hype, and he'd almost be like a consolation pick here to anybody who didn't really need a quarterback at the 1.05. All right, 1.06, we get to the QB4 in the class in Drake Maye, taken 3rd overall to the New England Patriots. And this is the one landing spot for a quarterback this year that I know everybody is terrified of. And I think it seems very realistic that it does end up being Drake Maye on draft day. As we all know, the Patriots have nobody at wide receiver, and it is wild to say that KJ Osborne is probably the best receiver on the team currently. Spoiler alert, they do draft a receiver in the 2nd round that we will get to later in this draft, but overall, the vibes just are not there for Drake Maye in New England. I do think that he could perform better than we would expect him to. Perhaps he can grow into a high-end QB2 over his rookie contract if the New England Patriots add more weapons, but Currently, the situation just sucks for Drake Maye initially, but because he is a high-profile quarterback prospect and this is a Superflex rookie mock, he still gets the nod here at the 1.06. With the 1.07, we get to Brock Bowers, who was taken 10th overall to the New York Jets, which, in my opinion, is the best landing spot for him to produce right out of the gate as a rookie after the LA Chargers at 5 overall. Currently, the Jets do, but also kind of don't really have a solid second option. The idea of Mike Williams is definitely better than anything they've had across from Garrett Wilson over the past couple of years, but he does turn 30 this year. He is coming off of an ACL tear and just in general has not been the healthiest player over his career. So there is definitely room here for an elite talent like Brock Bowers to carve out a role as the second option on the team and catching passes from Aaron Rodgers. Even if you don't think that the Jets are the most ideal landing spot for Bowers, you have to at least admit that it is a positive one. And as long as we don't have massive expectations for the best fantasy tight end ever in year one, then Bowers is more than worth the 107 in regular Superflex leagues and perhaps even higher in tight end premium leagues. At 1.08 now, to round out what is currently being perceived as the upper tier of prospects, I kept Odunze at this pick despite him landing with the Chicago Bears at 9th overall. Again, to be completely honest here, I do not like this landing spot. I just don't understand it from the Bears' point of view, why they would still want another receiver drafted this highly when they already have DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. I don't like it from an Odunze standpoint because I want him to go to a team where he can enter as the wide receiver 1 or at least the 1B. I just don't really get this pick at all, and I think it would be really disappointing from a fantasy standpoint. With that said, though, Odunze is still an immensely talented receiver, and you can spin some narratives as to why he'll be a great fantasy receiver in a year or two. So I think he still has to be here at 1.08 strictly because of the talent, but this really feels like Jackson Smith and Jigba 2.0, and I can see some sexier landing spots bumping Odunze down even more in rookie drafts. Like, for example, Adonai Mitchell landing with the LA Chargers at 23rd overall as part of their trade back deal with the Minnesota Vikings. Perhaps the most coveted landing spot for any receiver in the draft, and Adonai Mitchell gets it in the late first round of the NFL draft. This would skyrocket his already ascending value, and I would completely understand why people would gravitate towards Mitchell over Odunze in rookie drafts if this is how the NFL draft actually played out. There is just so much upside here with the untapped potential of Adonai Mitchell as a superstar X receiver paired with Justin Herbert and the massive hole that the Chargers have at receiver. I 100% understand why Mitchell might go higher than 1.09 in Superflex, but just for the sake of this rookie mock draft, I still lean towards Odunze because of the talent, but absolutely love the fact that Adonai Mitchell here is going to the LA Chargers and the landing spot is absolutely fantastic. Continuing with the landing spot hype, at the 110, we get Xavier landing with the other arguably most coveted spot for any receiver in this year's class, the Buffalo Bills at 28 overall. Now, the story here is the exact same for Worthy as it was for Mitchell. We have untapped potential from the rookie with insane upside as the wide receiver 1 for an elite quarterback. Again, I would 100% understand if people gravitated towards Worthy over Odunze or even Worthy over Mitchell because of this landing spot. But the reason why he slides in behind both is, again, talent versus Odunze. I just view Odunze as the way better receiver, and I'll wait out the situation. And then overall upside versus Adonai Mitchell. By that, I mean, given the types of players that they are, how they win, where they win, etc., Adonai Mitchell to me has more upside in the NFL than Xavier Worthy does, and since the landing spots are identical in my opinion, and Mitchell was also drafted first in the NFL draft, then I'm going to lean towards Adonai Mitchell in rookie drafts ahead of Xavier Worthy. But Worthy landing in Buffalo is absolutely also fantastic for his value and for anybody who has a late first round pick, because you're just about guaranteed in this situation of NFL draft picks to get a fantastic rookie wide receiver prospect. Now with the 111, we continue our wide receiver run with Brian Thomas Jr., who was actually drafted before Mitchell and Worthy in Fields' mock, but it was to the Cincinnati Bengals, which, don't get me wrong, is not a bad landing spot at all. I just think the community would prefer to draft a receiver that has a path to being the wide receiver 1 on their team over a guy who is at at best going to be the 1B with Jamar Chase. And this is assuming that T. Higgins is even traded before the 2024 season. It is entirely possible that the Bengals draft BTJ in the first this year, and he's the wide receiver 3 on the team for 2024, and then the eventual replacement for Higgins in 2025, which would hurt Brian Thomas's initial value because his path to production is lower as a rookie than the 2 Texas kids. But I still think people would be happy to draft PTJ here with the 111 as a top 20 pick in the NFL draft. And to close out the first round, we go back to the quarterback position here for Bo Nix, who was drafted by the Denver Broncos at 12 overall. Now, I really don't have all that much to say here. Personally, I think this is a massive reach for a quarterback that I personally peg more as a day 2 pick, but this is super flex. Bo Nix is a first round quarterback in this situation with an immediate path to starting in week 1. And that is the argument here for him at the 112 to close out the first round of this Superflex rookie mock draft. But let's move over to a more exciting player for me personally. Let us turn to our first running back of the video at the 2.01, which is Jonathon Brooks, landing where else but the Dallas Cowboys in round 2. Just a perfect match for the caliber of back that Brooks is on a team that desperately needs a running back 1. I really wanted to put Brooks in the first round of this mock. In fact, I think he would land in the first round in a lot of real actual rookie drafts to teams who need a running back in the late first should this actual situation play out. But for overall ADP and value, I think the wide receivers would take more precedence with their ideal landing spots by the community than Jonathon Brooks in his ideal landing spot, in addition to the fact that Brooks is still recovering from his ACL injury back in November. However, we can't deny the upside that Brooks has in this Cowboys offense. He can realistically be a top 5 fantasy running back by year 2 in 2025. That is not out of the range of possibilities for him, and that is more than worth the 2.01 in Superflex, if not even higher. But at the 2.02, we go back to wide receiver with Troy Franklin, falling all the way to the end of the second round, but lands with the Kansas City Chiefs, a team who is still looking for answers at the wide receiver position. And anytime a receiver is paired with Patrick Mahomes, their value is going to go up. Yes, the Chiefs just signed Hollywood Brown, but that is just a 1-year deal that can very easily end in Hollywood signing elsewhere for more in 2025. Plus, we have all this Rashee Rice legal stuff going on. Travis Kelce seems to have one foot out the door for retirement, and there is still room here on this team for a receiver to produce in Kansas City, especially a vertical threat like Troy Franklin. I mean, who knows? Maybe he has a solid rookie year, and in 2025, when Hollywood is gone in free agency, Travis Kelce is retired, Franklin could be the wide receiver 1 or 1A with Rashee Rice and be a big play threat for Patrick Mahomes any given week. That is an insanely valuable role for fantasy that we just can't pass up at the 2.02 as the wide receiver 7 in this rookie draft. At 2.03, we get another rookie wide receiver, but it's not one of the receivers that you guys are so patiently waiting to see get drafted. It is actually Xavier Legette here, and this is the aforementioned Patriots edition as the wide receiver 1 with Drake Maye. Now, I can see a bunch of people already running to the comments getting ready to say a multitude of things like how the Patriots have never drafted receiver well. Legette is just another bust for people to waste their draft picks on, etc., etc. But you have to at least acknowledge the upside here for Legette in this Patriots offense. This is more than likely the wide receiver 1 for a really good rookie quarterback, and Legette himself is just a massive home run swing on size and just overall athleticism. Yes, he is an extremely raw prospect with only 1 year of production in his 5 collegiate years, but that could also be spun as a positive in this scenario where he can develop into a very solid wide receiver 2 for fantasy and perhaps even more. Yes, it is a home run swing, but it's a home run swing in the early second round of rookie drafts, not in the first round. That is a way more manageable opportunity cost for the upside that Legette could have with Drake Maye in the Patriots offense. Now with the 2.04, we get to our RB2 in the class, the only other running back drafted in the second round. It is Trey Benson to the Cleveland Browns. And you might have just audibly gasped at that landing spot because why would Cleveland take a running back when they have Nick Chubb coming back from injury? Jerome Ford looked really solid, but just hear me out on this one. Trey Benson is 100% better than Jerome Ford. And the Browns are also telling us that based on where they're drafting Benson versus where they drafted Ford just 2 years ago. And yes, Nick Chubb is coming back, but we're talking about a soon-to-be 29-year-old running back coming off of a really bad knee injury. Just how effective do we expect him to be in his first year back? Not to mention that this is actually Nick Chubb's final year on his contract, so the Browns could already be looking towards his replacement. And also, if they really wanted to, they could still cut him right now and save almost $12 million in cap space. I'm not sure why they would do that. I don't think they would actually do that, but it is an option that I'm just throwing out there is available to them if they wanted to. Now, as for Benson himself, I think the Browns are a perfect landing spot for him specifically. They would make him a workhorse running back with 250 carries a year or more, and he has the elite breakaway speed to be really dangerous in the open field, kind of like a younger version of Nick Chubb back in 2019, and I think that they would use him enough in the passing game to give him a higher floor and ceiling for fantasy. So personally, I love this landing spot and would be interested in drafting him even higher than the 2.04 as well if this actually ended up happening. With the 2.05 now, I decided to have a little bit of fun here because originally Field had Malachi Corley going to the Houston Texans in the second round, but that was made literally hours before Stefon Diggs got traded to the Texans. So I decided to keep Corley in this mock and move him over to the Buffalo Bills in the second round and have them double dip at wide receiver in this draft. Again, I know that they just signed Curtis Samuel. They still have Khalil Shakir, but they lost two receivers this offseason in Stefon Diggs and Gabe Davis. And even though they drafted Xavier in the first round, they could still be in the market for talent in this deep rookie class. And that is exactly what they get with Malachi Corley. Corley would add a dimension to this Bills offense that I think replaces Stefon Diggs more than Xavier does. Worthy to me is Gabe Davis. Corley is Stefon Diggs. So if he ends up in Buffalo in the late second round, I think that more than justifies him going in the mid-second round of rookie drafts, given the upside that he would have with Josh Allen at quarterback in that offense. At 2.06, we get another interesting receiver name in Roman Wilson, who lands in the second round with the Pittsburgh Steelers as the Deontay Johnson replacement. This honestly feels like Jayden Reed going to the Packers last year on a team that already had Christian Watson, but Reed is a different receiver than Christian Watson, and they complement each other very, very well, and that's why Reed was a mid to late second round rookie pick in last year's drafts, and that is exactly what I see here with Roman Wilson and George Pickens on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The reason Wilson lands here at 2.06 over still a couple of receivers that I know you guys are waiting to see is strictly the landing spot and the target opportunity. There is a role here in Pittsburgh for Wilson to produce immediately, and we know the Steelers are also very good at developing rookie receivers. So if you want a shot on a PPR type of producer who can net you 12 or more fantasy points without even scoring a touchdown, that is Roman Wilson in the Steelers offense at the 2.06. All right, now I'm not going to break down the final 6 picks of this second round. They're all just kind of meh picks and the explanations are really short, but here they are for you to check out. Obviously, the big name I have to explain is Ladd McConkey at 2.08, but that to me is strictly because of the Indianapolis Colts landing spots, which feels extremely weird and also redundant with their pick last year in Josh Downs. I already don't like Ladd McConkey as a prospect despite so many other people loving him, so then adding in a weird landing spot just makes me even more confused about him than I already am. I don't know how that would be perceived by the community, so I plugged him in here at the 2.08. And then Keon Coleman is the other name that kind of fell, but again, this landing spot with the Washington Commanders with 2 other solid receivers already on the team, and as a project receiver himself, just doesn't really feel like a great pick in the early to mid second, so he falls to 2.09. And then just so I don't get yelled at in the comments, here is how I would do a 1 quarterback mock with these landing spots. Basically, just drop all of the quarterbacks down like 6 to 12 picks depending on who they are, and you get yourself a 1 QB rookie draft. Nothing too crazy going on there, but leave a comment down below about how you feel about all these landing spots from Field Yates' mock and my subsequent ranking of them in a rookie draft setting. And while you're at it, check out why I don't like Ladd McConkey or Keon Coleman in this video right up here.